Well, let's just look at Chattanooga from a base standpoint. The first medals originated here. All right, you have with the Andrews Raiders and with MacArthur's dad right here. So the first medals originated right here. So I can't think of a better place to have a museum dedicated to those virtues, those values of the medal than right here at the Coolidge Heritage Center.
Yeah, I heard an interview with you once where you spoke about the idea that maybe at some point we'll reach a place where there are no living Medal of Honor recipients anymore, right. And that would mean we haven't fought any wars in a very long time. And it seemed to me when you were telling that story that's something you had thought about a lot. Can you kind of just speak to that idea and that thought of, especially interesting coming from someone who's seen as much fighting as you've seen?
I think that's the ideal, isn't it? To have no more wars. Like we as humans evolved to a place where we can figure out another way to resolve our differences, better communication, whatever that looks like. But we've evolved beyond the need to create wars and kill each other, which is getting increasingly more violent and extreme. So maybe through what we do here at the Coolidge Center, through education, through, I don't know, displaying what humans are capable of doing on a kinetic scale, but also what we're capable of doing on a very we say love scale of each other. Can we make a Medal of Honor recipient an endangered species? That you don't see another living one, not because people aren't doing valorous things, but because we are not getting involved in these conflicts that create them in the first place. That's really where I started thinking about this, to say, man, this isn't glorifying war. This is quite the opposite of it, to say, hey, this is about the human condition of my promise I made to you, my country, my teammates, of, hey, I'm going to do my best I can to get our job done, but get us home. Wouldn't it be great if we were never put in those situations to begin with? That's why these things are so important.
Yeah, I've heard it said, it's kind of a saying or a cliche, but I think there's truth to it, that no one dislikes war more than the war fighter.
No, it's absolutely fact. Yeah. Absolutely fact. Like, I wish that we didn't have to do it. Really, in warfare, you're fighting an idea, right? And there reaches a tipping point when you have to go to that kinetic action. But wouldn't it be great if we never get to that tipping point, but we figure out another way to resolve our differences. But war is terrible, absolute terrible.
When you speak to groups, what do you talk about? What's your message?
First message is really about, let's just say, resilience in the face of adversity, right? How do you make decisions? There's a moment that's going to hit you. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but it's right in front of you. You got to decide, what am I going to do? And do I choose to take that difficult path, or do I choose to not take action? So it is about resilience in a moment and making decisions under duress in that moment. Where are you grounded? Where's your courage? Where's your convictions? Where's your compassion? All coming together at that moment so you can be a contributor to the situation and not a consumer of the situation. So that's the first thing I talk about. Second thing is about us all standing together as citizens, being the thread of the flag, if you will. If you look at our nation's flag and you see the red, the white, and the blue, the colors and everything that it means, but no one ever thinks about the thread woven in and out of everything that holds it together. That thread is you and me. It's your audience. It's all of us. And it's up to us to hold it together when the winds try to tear us apart.
That's a great point. That's a great point. Curious about this. We're sitting in here and you can see the character traits all around us. And I know that's obviously a big part of the society's mission and the center's mission to explain that to people. Do you think when you do go out and talk to people that they understand these ideas and kind of what the Medal of Honor means and those kind of things?
I think there's a definite need to talk about them, right? I mean, now more than ever, I mean, you look across our society, it's on the verge of tearing itself apart. Those winds are building up, right, in many different forms to try to tear ourselves apart. We're a strong country, right? When one challenge is put in the corner, we are a strong country. Both, militarily we are, and hopefully we still continue to have a strong government. But the one weapon our opponents truly have against us that is very effective is to try to divide ourselves. That's the only weapon that they really have that's going to be most effective against us. There's no kinetic real option that could tear us apart more than us tearing ourselves apart from internally. So talking about these values, it's more important now than ever.
Yeah. I want to ask a couple questions about being a Medal of Honor recipient. I was reading something that Jim Stockdale wrote earlier this year. He talked about he was a new recipient walking into a room full of recipients, and kind of what that feeling was like. And I think anybody can understand why that would be kind of, awe-inspiring or whatnot. But then again, you think what he did is like, oh my gosh, And so, what has that been like for you to every Medal of Honor recipient I've ever spoken to is never going to tell you, I deserve this. That's not the vibe. But you're now in that class. You're with those other people. What's that been like for you?
No, it's the same feeling. When I got the call that said, hey, you're going to be a recipient, I'm literally told the speaker on the phone, no. This is a high-ranking member of the government, right? I told him no, like, hey, sir, don't do this to me, right? There were so many other people up there with me just doing my job that day. Thankfully, teammates followed me that day, but just doing the job that I was trained to do. And the person on the end of the phone said, hey, Britt, I understand your sentiment, but literally just shut up and follow orders. So you embrace it. But I had the same moment, like what you're saying Stockdale had, when my first convention, and my action was in 2002, a medal came my way in 2018 after I'd been retired for a few years. Went to my first convention in 2018. And when my wife and I started to walk into the room where there was 44 recipients in the room, I literally stopped at the door. Right? You see 40 recipients in there, I was like, okay, there's no way I'm going in here, no way I'm part of this group. Like, no, can't. These are the people you studied, you learned about, like hero, legend status. No way I'm part of that group. And there was a gentleman who's since gone, recipient in the room, was in a wheelchair, saw me at the door, recognized who I was and what I was going through internally, gets up out of his chair. His daughter was with him, managing the wheelchair, trying to hold her dad down. It's like, no, Dad, stay in the chair. He's like, nope, get away from me. Gets up out of the chair, walks over to me, and he says, you're the new guy, right? And I said, yes, sir. He's like, don't call me sir. I was like, yes, sir. And he says, hey, welcome to the family. Come on in, right? And from that moment, like, all my anxiety just kind of went away, because they're all the same, right? Helped me immensely.
When you do go and you talk about your specific combat action, and there were 2 recipients from that combat action, right? Do people know that story?
I don't think so. I don't think they know it. In general, I don't think people understand the amount of service and sacrifice that our service members go through and our families go through for the very ideals that built this country. I just think they don't know. That's why the work of this museum and all the others that are out there to talk about service and the convictions that some of our citizens have towards ideals and toward complete strangers. They just don't understand it. In some ways, I think that's okay. Like, if everybody understood what combat was like, maybe we're doing something wrong, right? But in the other ways, they have to understand and be somewhat respectful, if not reverent, of what's been given for them to allow them to live the lives that they've lived. So it's important that these stories continue to be told, and more importantly, understood by the people that go through them.